Marie, have you ever allowed a thought, and I say allowed a thought to enter your mind and it ends up taking a hold of your mind and ultimately ruined your entire day? Have you ever had that happen?
Absolutely. Almost on the daily, although I'm getting much better at it, at slowing and calming those thoughts.
Like, for example, I was thinking of for myself, for example, walking into work and I say good morning to somebody and they don't say anything back. And I literally that has ruined my day before because I have sat there and been like, geez, like, did I say something to offend them? Like I'm walking myself through our last interaction. And even though that last interaction could have been the night before saying goodbye and everything was fine, it has ruined my day where I've sat there and thought, geez, like, I wondered, did I say something to upset them or whatever? And yeah, can 100% affect my mood for the whole day.
Absolutely. I've experienced similar things where I'll wake up and maybe on my way to the bathroom, I'll stub my toe. And then, like, emotionally, it's almost like you've decided it's going to be a bad day, right? You just let
Yeah,
that wave of negative thoughts swoop in. So, yeah, I can
100%. Yeah.
completely relate to you, Kristen. I had this funny feeling that we were not alone in that. So, what you're talking about, Krista, are automatic negative thoughts. It's something that really is like a human condition. And if you don't know what they are, if you don't know the power that they have, they can kind of take over. So what I love about automatic negative thoughts is as soon as you realize what they are, you can kind of work to calm and settle and kind of challenge them, which is the best thing. So when I think of automatic negative thoughts, ants,
Right.
I like to visualize like a picnic. So I'm a big summer person. So in the summertime, I honestly do this. I love to like take a picnic basket, fill it with like my favorite foods, my children's favorite foods. If we have friends with us, all the good stuff. We like pick a beautiful sunny day. We head to the beach. Everybody's in a glorious mood. Life is great. And so we like spread out the picnic basket, like the blanket, all the food, everything. We're having a great time. And then there is always a tiny little ant that sneaks in. Or actually, if I'm thinking of the beach, maybe the real analogy is like a seagull. But let's go with
Yeah.
ants. So
Yeah.
automatic negative thoughts. A little ant will kind of creepy crawl its way in. And if you're not careful, the way that ants work, they are a team, right? So one will come in and then quickly after another. And then all of a sudden, if you're not really thoughtful and mindful about those ants, your picnic is ruined. And so that's sort of a good analogy or good comparison to keep in mind when we're learning about automatic negative thoughts, that if we don't learn how to like control them and take a big deep breath and work through them, then they can kind of ruin our day. But the other piece is that it's really empowering when we realize, oh, wait, we actually can name that, we can tame that, and we
Mm.
can get control of those ants and then end up having a great picnic day after all.
So when you say that about ants, that makes me think of, so when I walked past that person, said good morning, and they didn't say anything to me, then I guess the ant in my mind was allowing that thought to take hold. Like, I guess the ant is, did I do something to offend them? So just allowing that negative thought to enter my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Or for me, the stub toe. One bad interaction or one bad moment does not like determine the flow of your whole day, right? You have some power
Yeah,
to
the
take
rest of
that
your
back.
day.
So
Yeah.
it's a mindset piece too. Yeah.
No, for sure. For sure.
So, welcome to Take Back Today. I'm Marie. This is Krista. And we are both lifelong educators and licensed counseling therapists. Today, we're talking about automatic negative thoughts. Those are those habitual ways that our brain tricks us into feeling anxious. So,
Yeah.
there's our picnic.
It's not always a picnic, am I right?
No, not at all.
Yeah. So why do you think these negative thought patterns, first of all, why do you think we have them? And what's the problem with having them, I guess?
I think like there's so many different reasons, right? But on many levels, it's a protective thing where as
Mm.
human beings, like we are hardwired, like historically to keep ourselves safe and protected. So we're always chronically kind of looking for danger, assessing situations, making sure that we're safe. It's that like classic reptilian brain, which is great. And it has served us so well for like centuries and centuries, except in today's modern world, it's kind of tripping us out, right? Like
Yeah.
we start to see danger and flaws in situations that aren't really dangerous or flawed, right? So I think that's the piece to focus in. Like we have more control over situations that feel out of our control if we kind of tame our negative thoughts.
That's true. And I even think of like, so when I was talking about the interaction piece, like the face-to-face or person-to-person interaction piece. I guess we can even extend that in today's technology with text, for example, because I know I've gotten, I'll say, my feelings hurt, if you will, when I have sent a text and I can tell that somebody has read it, right? But then they haven't responded. And so logically, I should be walking myself through. They might be in the bathroom. They could be like, they might have like picked it up.
In the bathroom, Krista, sorry.
Right. Right. And so, but yet you see how that can totally take hold and just ruin your entire day, right? Thinking
Absolutely.
like, again, like, what did I do? Why am I not important enough? I mean, you can take this whole thought, this little ant, like you were saying, and let it spiral out of control. And well, really, I think it'd be, I know there are many different types of what's known as common, thinking errors, or people have referred to them as mind trap thinking, or what we're talking about today, automatic negative thoughts, right? And the idea is that there's actually some really common ones, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure. I've seen a list of like 7, 8, 9. Like, I think really honestly, the list is kind of endless. The exciting thing about that is I remember, like, as a licensed counseling therapist, going through my education my degree and then my master's, and for me, it almost felt like I was self-counseling. As I was working my way through these studies, because it was like this sudden awareness of, oh my goodness, that is how my brain is working, and that is how I've been sort of accidentally tripping myself up and wrecking my own picnic all these years. And so really, when Krista and I wanted to start Take Back Today, it's with that idea of sharing some of those insightful, like, glorious epiphany moments as counselors that we think are really valuable for everybody. And for me, thinking errors and automatic negative thoughts definitely fit that category. Like, it was life-changing for me to realize, wow, each day, like, I'm sort of accidentally, chronically shifting my mindset towards the negative. So the flip side of that is, if you know that, you can kind of actually, like, empower your brain to be more positive and reroute new thinking patterns that are more optimistic and more positive, and really focus on the good. I don't know.
love
Was
that,
that your
Marie.
experience too, Krista?
Yeah, for sure. I love that, because I really feel knowledge is power. And so one thing, when I was also going through school, what I had realized is that I am, well, it's funny you were saying about learning about the different thought patterns as well as self-diagnosing. Am I right? I think I would diagnose myself with about 4 or 5 different things. But anyway, yeah. But one thing I noticed was, for my negative thought patterns, I was definitely a what if thinker. So, and that's such a tricky one, because it masks itself so well. It's like, well, I didn't start the sentence in my head with what if, but it doesn't matter. It's still, like, can definitely take hold, right? So a lot of times it's that what if, and then I don't know if you've done this, but played out like worst case scenario. It's all, and then you sit in those emotions of worst case scenario, right? Is that fair to say that would ruin your day potentially, or definitely ruin your mood in the moment? Yeah. Yeah. So that was one I noticed. And as I was doing my education, I noticed, I realized that that's actually a very common one. Many of us do have that what if thinking, and it's always worst case scenario. How about you? Can you think of one that it's crossed your mind before?
For sure. And before, I wanted to share one mind reading for me, but before I do that, I even want to say, like, with what if thinking that you're talking about, I don't know if I've ever really encountered anybody who automatically, comfortably goes to what if thinking and it's positive. It's always negative, right? So it is like a tricky human condition that we have to counteract. But for me, mind reading is one that I really am guilty of. And I think maybe that's just part of being kind of introverted and a little anxious, but mind reading is definitely like a comfortable, swampy place that I sit in. So it's just that idea. And I often work with adolescents. So, one example of that would be like in the school hallway, you're walking down and you see a friend, or maybe like you see a crush. And so you smile at them, or you nod, or you like even bravely say hi. And then the response is nothing. And maybe there's no even eye contact. Like, it's not what you were hoping for. And so the mind reading piece is instantly like, they hate me. That crush isn't mutual. What have I done? My friendship is ending. Da 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 da. Okay.
Right.
And for an adult, I've experienced that a little bit, like, not to the same like dramatic extent as middle school and high school, teenagehood. But if you're in the grocery store, right, and you see somebody that you haven't seen in a little while, and you walk by and you do the nod or the hi, and then you don't get it back. So it's that same discomfort of like, oh, what am I misreading? Do they not like me? Like maybe like you don't always let yourself go to the likelihood of that they just didn't see me, right? Or they're busy, or they're looking at their grocery list, or they're
So
just like
true.
you and need to get in and out of there in 5 minutes because they have like a grumpy child in the car, right? Like you don't think of all those things. You just take it instantly personal, and it's like a negative space to sit in. So yeah, for me, mind reading for sure is one. Does that connect with you at all, Krista? Can you relate to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Almost like living into the future when really none of us can foresee the future, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I also think of would it be fair to say that language matters as well, like language and how we speak to ourselves? So when I think of another one that I've come across that I think is a very common one is that all or nothing thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is when we've all said these thoughts to ourselves, I'm sure, like, oh, this always happens to me. So the word always, for example, is
Yeah.
like factually not true, but in the moment, that's what it feels like, right? So we attach that word always. Or I think of a word like never or nobody. So, like,
Yes. Yeah.
say something happens and you're, I don't know, let's say you have a conflict with an issue, Frig, like nobody likes me. Then again, factually not true, right? But yet we
Yeah.
say those words to ourselves and hold on to them as if it's that all or nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I
And
find
the
that's
tricky
another
piece with
one.
that, nobody likes me, is that it really quickly spirals into like, I'm unlikable. What is wrong with me? Right. Like it
Absolutely.
becomes such a personal negative evaluation, which is so tough to sit with. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
I can
sure.
totally relate to all or nothing thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's often never. I will never do this. I will never challenge that. So for me,
Yeah.
another one too is catastrophizing. I don't know if you are aware of that one, Chris, or if that one sits close to your heart and home, but catastrophizing for me, I used to be really anxious and nervous around the idea of flying. I would still make myself do it, but I would always sit on that plane and really come close to feeling quite panicky with that idea that like this will be the flight that ends horribly. And I really,
Mm.
as a parent, try not to share that too much because I have a daughter who just traveled and the same feeling was there. Like right away, my mind went to this will be the one flight that ends up like, but it's not. Like we know statistically speaking, all research
Right.
shows that we are fine, right? So you can challenge it, but ooh, it's an emotional space to sit with that automatic thought that that ant is coming and that ant is taking the plane down with it to my picnic, right? So
It's so true.
yeah,
That idea of like making a mountain out of a molehill. Yeah. That
exactly. Yeah.
inability, if you will, to like logically rationalize a thought that ends up
Yeah.
spiraling. Again, I use that word spiral because that's going down that rabbit hole. It just takes hold of your day. And as I said, can either affect your mood in the moment or if you allow to sit with it long enough, can end up affecting part of your day, all of your day, how your
Mhm.
interactions with other people, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so silly because if we allowed our minds to be open to like instead of a catastrophe, something amazing were to happen, it would do the exact opposite, right? We would take that into the rest of our day too. That idea of hope and glimmers and excitement and things that could go right versus all the millions of things that could go wrong, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
We would love if you would be willing to share in the comments some negative thought patterns that maybe you've identified, or just even some negative thoughts that have crossed your mind. And I don't know, maybe we can talk about it next time about, if those are actually common negative thoughts. Marie, have you ever had like a personal experience with a negative thought, like an actual example you can think
That's a great question, Krista. And like, if you have hours, we could just go there, but I'm gonna just pick one.
of?
For me, like all throughout my formative teenage years and then even my undergrad, I was very nervous to public speak. Like I was very nervous to do
Mm,
presentations, and it stems from having done one that didn't go well. Like I was shy and nervous and clammy hands and heart racing, and it just was not my proudest moment. And so I did what's called like overgeneralization. So I just decided not actively, but I guess internally, I just decided in that moment that like public speaking was just not going to be my thing. And I would always
mm,
mess it up from that step forward. And I held that with me for many, many years. Like I've been able to challenge it now and obviously do lots of workshops and public speak and do all that quite comfortably now. But it is kind of wild. Like that one moment, I didn't even realize it stuck with me. And then from that step on, I had just emotionally decided that that wouldn't be who I could be, right? I was not the
Yeah.
person who could public speak, which is so funny. And I'm like so glad now in hindsight that I did learn about ants and how to challenge negative thoughts, because I really love public speaking. I love sharing and talking about these things that you and I value so much, like these little
For
mental
sure.
health tidbits and tricks. I love sharing that. And if I hadn't kind of conquered that overgeneralization ant, then I wouldn't be able to do that, right? So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's
But that's
fair.
just one of many. Does one come to mind for you, Krista? So for me, it's overgeneralization, but what is it for you?
I think for me, again, as I said earlier, I'd say I'm a what if thinker, and it's that
Yeah.
tendency to fall into the worst case scenario and then sit in those emotions and let those emotions really dictate the rest of your day, how your
Yeah.
interactions with others, as I mentioned. So, um, and even I guess I'll even stretch that and say, even to how you respond within yourself. So, as an example, one that I have is, driving on the highway. I'll just mention. So I had a 13-year phobia of driving on the highway, where I avoided at all costs. And why did I avoid that? So as I was working through that, I had to identify, well, this is starting with a thought. So learned behavior, yada, yada. But like, where is this starting from? And I realized it was starting with what if, obviously worst case scenario, something happened. And for me, as I like reflected and dug a little deeper, it was the obvious, like, something horrible would happen. I'll leave the details out, but the other one for me was really the what if, when you're driving on the highway and someone pulls onto the highway from an off ramp coming onto the highway, what if I can't move over? What if I'm not able to speed up faster? What if I'm not able to slow down and allow that car to get on? What if? And then it would leave me feeling, I'm talking terrified. And I'm literally sitting in my home and having this thought, and I'm experiencing all those physical sensations as well. So like legs shaking, no word of a lie, the pit in the stomach, the feeling like my throat was closing over, all that's and so you can see, like how that would affect your day to day. I mean,
Yeah.
and then when I said digging a little deeper and going into like reflecting it on yourself, is like the amount of shame that I guess I felt for that, and embarrassment. Yeah, that was a lot. It was heavy. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So I loved what you had said, because the good news is our brains are kind of like that. Plasticity, so that ability, if you will, to retrain your thoughts. And I will say to this day, I do not have a phobia of driving on the highway. I did not have to take like medication for it necessarily. I didn't have to, have some sort of like CT scans or medical treatment in that way. I literally learned how to identify my thoughts. I learned how to challenge them. And over time, was able to retrain my brain so that I now am able to access logically and rationally just by challenging. So it's so cool. So what's cool, Marie, about it is that how one thing, a thought, right, can ruin a day. And yet on the other hand, a thought can help retrain and empower your ability to move forward and work through something. It's kind of cool.
It is, yeah.
So,
And the
yeah,
really beautiful thing too is, challenging it once and improving once really can have like a long-term impact, because the next time you go to drive on the highway, you have that like successful moment that you take with you, right? So it's not that you
absolutely.
just conquer your, fear immediately. It's that you can learn to conquer it long term. Because as you said, Krista, like it's the elasticity. You are really retraining your brain with that idea of like, oh, I am capable of this. And Krista, as your friend, it was so beautiful to watch you go through that, to see this terrified, so intimidated Krista, like you really, to the point where you didn't even really want to talk about it too much. Like it was
Yeah.
just this like unspoken thing about Krista and driving. And then to see you now like comfortably drive to and from every day on the highway, like
Yep.
Krista,
I
well
know.
done.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate that.
And that's because you learned about automatic negative thoughts, right? Like you learned how to
100%.
challenge them. So well done.
And how to be would you agree that the most important piece to start with is to identify what are your automatic negative thoughts? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like you can know
Yeah.
all of them. Let's say there's 12 common negative thoughts, but not all of them are going to be applicable to you. Right. And so it's about identifying those one or two thoughts that really kind of like and being honest with yourself, I guess, would be another piece I would also mention. You have to be honest with yourself. I had to be real with myself. As ridiculous to me now, looking at it as the worry to the degree of avoiding for 13 years of what if a car comes onto the highway and I don't know what to do in that moment? Like just that idea of, like you have to be real with yourself. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but yeah.
Well, you're making me think of, I always think of it as like a 3-step thing. So the first idea to me to kind of sit with is that self-awareness. Like, who am
Yeah.
I? What are the pieces of me that are making me uncomfortable? What are those barriers within me to like that are stopping me from leading like a super functional life or like the best version of myself? And that can be really uncomfortable. That self-awareness piece is maybe the hardest piece of any therapeutic process, right? Because you have to, as you said, Krista, be really honest, right? And then
Yeah.
for me, after the self-awareness is built, is that self-compassion. And we need to like smother everything we do in self-compassion, right? So that understanding of like, oh, now I know that automatic negative thoughts are very normal. This is a very typical thought pattern that I'm having, right? Like, and there's nothing flawed in my thinking. It's just the way we are like chronically socially taught to like function, right? So,
For sure.
and with self-compassion is that idea of like, and I can do better, right? Like now that I know better, I can do better. So it's that blend of self-awareness, self-compassion, and then, I mean, I guess I want to call self-actualization, or I mean, just becoming the best version of yourself that you can be through learning about yourself, being
Yeah.
gentle and supportive and celebratory with yourself, and then taking some like actionable items to kind of figure that out. And so your story of you conquering driving, that's so similar to my own story of learning about public speaking
Yeah.
or my own fears around flying, right? Like we work through these things like based on, self-awareness, self-understanding, self-compassion, and then like, self-celebration. I guess I haven't figured out the third term for it, but it's that like realization of who we could be, that self-celebration. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I will be real. I didn't catch all the negative thoughts that went through my head. I didn't catch the what if thinking every single time and nailed it. Like my 13-year phobia of driving on the highway wasn't undone in a 24-hour period of recognizing, oh, I have what if thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it took about 11 months to undo 13 years. But you know what? I'd do that again. I'd take 11
Yeah.
months of being aware as best as I can of my negative thought patterns and learning ways that I challenge them. And sometimes, I don't know, Marie, when you started challenging yourself, did you feel like it was a little bit scripted at first, almost felt like phony or
Corny,
something?
really
Yeah,
corny.
yeah. And
Yeah.
corny, yeah. But I think over
That's like when you're doing
time,
self-affirmations, you're like, I'm amazing.
oh,
I
I
can
know.
do this. It's going to be a great day. Like you have to just like come to terms with your inner cheese ball like that. It's so healthy. So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. But the idea is that it's not a 24-hour, it's a lifelong fix. I'm going to say that though.
Mhm.
Lifelong fix, lifelong change for the better, but it doesn't happen overnight. Like anything, there's some work to go into it. There's a little bit of uncomfortable. I feel like stepping outside, if you will, your comfort zone, but
Absolutely.
definitely worth it
And
in
I'm
the end
sure
for
too,
sure.
Krista, there are many, many thinking errors that we are both struggling with right now that we are not even aware of, right? Like that's just
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
how complicated and layered and kind of beautifully magical, tricky the human brain is, right? So yeah.
Yeah. And I
I
think
love
the
too that you
idea
said
is,
like there's no way that you have all 12. Sorry to those of you who do have all 12 or more, right?
yeah.
Like, right, it's very possible. But I'm like Krista too, in that there are a few that I really, really struggle with. So yeah. The more
Yeah.
you learn about the different types of thinking errors, just the more you are self-aware. So
So, Marie, when
yeah.
we've been using the word challenging a lot, like challenge thoughts or whatever, do you have any ideas, just off the cuff, like how did you challenge your thoughts?
Well, for me, a lot of it really was the self-compassion piece. I'm really hard on myself. And so when I kind of realized I was struggling with some automatic negative thought kind of patterns, for me, the biggest thought, and you hear this often, I think again, it's getting comfortable with the corniest, but like the way I would sort of honestly kind of self-reflect and talk to myself, like the way that I'm talking to myself, the way that I'm being so hard on myself for these automatic negative thoughts. Like, would I ever say that to a loved one? Would I ever talk to my children or my family or my good friends like Krista? Like, would I ever be so hard on myself? And
Mm.
so that to me really was like a pivot point of, wow, I should be way more gentle, right? Like having automatic negative thoughts isn't a flaw. It's just something to work through, right? So I think that that is a really helpful piece to start from too. Another one too is, Krista, you mentioned the what if thinking. So,
Mm-hmm.
what if my day is going to end terribly versus, well, okay, that's one really negative thought. Why don't I try to challenge that with like maybe two positive thoughts? Like, what if I do really well on a math test if you're in school? Or what if I get to spend some time with my child who I was really looking forward to cuddling with as a parent, right? Like you need to kind of explore the positives as well as the negatives. And my thought is always like, think of it as like a weight scale. Like if for every negative thought, try to counter it with at least one or two or three or as many as you can positive thoughts to kind of anchor yourself and get that power back in the positive. But those are the ones that come to mind for me. Chris, is there any strategy that you really kind of rely on? So for me, it's like it's self-compassion. How should I be talking to myself? Am I talking to myself in a loving way? And then just the positive challenging. So for every negative, we're going to go positive. Do you do
Nice.
those same ones, or what works for you?
Yeah, I have done those, and I found it really cool when I came across a piece of literature that said that for every negative thought you have just as many positive thoughts. And I was like, what? I didn't know
No
that.
way.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The one that really worked for me was playing out worst case scenario because I was good at it. So I was like, hey, play it out. What if? Right? And then I'd sit with those uncomfortable emotions, whatever. But then. And that's where it would end. Like, I just want to be clear, right? That's where it would end. And that's why it ruined my day or my mood. So by challenging it, what would happen is I would play out worst case scenario, because as I said, I was good at it, had lots of practice. But then I would ultimately finish with what's most likely going to happen. So just a quick example with the driving is I would say, what's worst case scenario? We already went through it. It's, this is going to happen. Something bad's going to happen, get in an accident, da, da, da. But then I would end it with what's most likely going to happen. And I would say, well, what's most likely going to happen is I'm going to get from point A to point B, and I'm going to feel nervous. My legs might shake. My throat might feel like it's closing over. It isn't, but it might feel that way. But it's not going to take away my ability as a driver. So I'm going to arrive safely to point B. And that's what's most likely going to happen. And so do you see like how powerful that can be over time? Because then your brain, it's almost like you're calming or quieting that negative thought in your brain, and you're logically, rationally approaching the thought. So that one has been really happening.
Krista, because you're allowing yourself to kind of admit that it might be uncomfortable. The process might be uncomfortable. Like, you said you
Absolutely.
might not be the most relaxed driver, but you will still get there, right? Like, so I
Absolutely.
think there's also this
Realistic.
idea of like a quick fix. That's not going to
Yeah.
happen. So you're allowing yourself the mess, like to get to the magic, which is beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one, it's actually an acronym, STOPP, but it's spelled STOPP, that I really, really liked. And I've used this one as well. So the S stands for, literally, if you can, say the word stop when you identify you're having a negative thought, right? Or if you can, if you're in front of people and don't want you to think you're losing your mind, you can say stop in your head. Then the T stands for take a breath. Just take that breath.
That's better already. Yeah.
Right. And then the O is observe. So observe, like look around. Where do you think that thought came from? Why are you having that thought? Was it something in the environment, something someone said, maybe a song on the radio? What triggered something, brought that thought on? And so just observe and then put it into practice. So this is actually the first P in the STOP acronym, and it's the one that it's the challenging piece of it. So it's kind of like what you said, what would a loved one say? So you could, one way to challenge a thought would be, what would a friend say? Or what would you say to a friend who is experiencing that thought, just as an example? Or is this thought fact? Like, do you have evidence to back this up? And if you do, great, give it time and attention. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, you don't have fact. It's just feeling, right? It's based on feeling. And so it's not really worth your time or attention. And so likely it is one of those little ants creeping across your brain in that sense, right? And then the second P in the STOPP acronym is just practice. Just as I said before, it's not a 24-hour fix. It's something that does take time, but 13 years took 11 months. So it's not that much time. And that was a pretty big, like that would have been definitely diagnosed as a full-fledged phobia, irrational fear, right? Brought on real emotions, real physical sensations, real avoidance, right? And so the idea is that it doesn't take forever. And it's so powerful, so powerful.
That is a really helpful one, Krista, and I do catch myself using that one. And I always make a point of saying stop out loud because then when people ask me, Marie, why are you saying stop? Then I get to share it, right? I get to share the stop technique. So I hope that everyone's been listening today has picked up a few, helpful ideas or helpful gems that maybe they can share too, even if it's just that idea of the picnic and the automatic negative thought kind of making its way in, and that idea and urge that we don't have to let our picnic get ruined, right? We can shoo those ants away. So, and Krista shared lots of great strategies and tips and tricks. So hopefully people can use and share and kind of live in a space where they know that ants are part of the human condition, but not something that they have to be stuck with, right? We can take our picnic back.
For sure. I love that. Take our picnic back. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to leave the comments about some of the negative thoughts that you might be having so that we can maybe talk about that in another episode. That'd be awesome.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody.